Good evening and welcome to the WMGA's 14th installment of the Swing Series. Tonight, Wendy Dominick, WMGA board member and our rules expert, will cover new rules changes for 2023 and answer your pre-submitted questions. In addition, I will be monitoring the chat feature so you can submit questions live during tonight's session. Wendy Dominick is a certified rules expert attending 7 USGA PGA rules workshops where she achieved the highest expert level at each session. She started volunteering as an official in 2010 after retiring from her career as a kindergarten teacher. Her knowledge has allowed her the opportunity to officiate at USGA, MGA, WMGA, and collegiate tournaments. Wendy is an avid golfer, playing over 100 days each summer. She's traveled to Scotland 13 times and Ireland 3 times. In 2017, Wendy was the WMGA's B Player of the Year. She's currently the team matches chair for the WMGA. Let's give a warm welcome to Wendy Dominick.
Hi, everybody. I'm so glad that you are joining us tonight. I'm thrilled to have you here. Hope you're not buried under snow. We didn't get the blizzard that we were told about, but have several inches of snow here. Like to just let you know what I have planned for this evening. The first thing I'll do is go over the changes for 2023. And from there, I'll move on to the questions that you emailed in. Some of you emailed them officially, and then others people emailed me privately, but I put them on the list as well. So I'll go over those questions. There were several questions regarding cart paths. So I'm going to do quite a bit about cart paths. I'll leave that more to the end so I can do the other questions first. And then after that, based on time, I have some other mini questions, or as Sarah told you, there's a little chat feature. During the course of the presentation tonight, if something isn't clear to you, or suddenly like, oh, that happened to me last summer, and you have another question, just type that into the chat feature. If it's relevant to what I'm in the middle of talking about, Sarah will interrupt and ask your question. Other times we'll just save it to later. Okay, so that's the plan. So on to 2023 rules changes. Oops, wrong picture. Oh, we'll get to that later. Let's see. Okay. As you probably know, there was a huge overhaul of the rules in 2019. And since they came out in 2019, they have been tweaked and tweaked and tweaked with not a lot of significant changes, but the huge overhaul certainly led to a lot of what ifs and what are we going to do about it. So there are some changes. On the screen that I'm showing you right now are the principal changes. You don't have to start writing these things down. This is all listed in the front of the rule book. If you don't have a rule book, but you're using the app, which is great, and it's been updated for 2023, you can find this whole list towards the end of the app. So you open the app, you go to rules, scroll down, and you'll get this list. These stars are mine because those are important ones. And I wrote a few little notes there that I'll cover. The others are fairly minor, but they are some important changes. So what I'm going to do is go over each of these and then circle back to the ones with the stars because I have more to show and some diagrams on those. So the first one is multiple penalties, multiple breaches. This is more for committees and rules officials than for players. It used to be quite a mess that if somebody breached 2 rules while doing one thing, or while doing 2 things, they breached the same rule twice. It was really quite a lot to sort out to see how many penalties they got. So this has been simplified so that it's limiting how this will work. So basically, if you do, let me just give you an example, I guess. We have what are called intervening events. And an intervening event is only making a stroke or finding out about a penalty, either because you figured it out yourself or somebody told you. So I think this is the best example I can give. You're not allowed to touch the sand in taking practice swings in a bunker. So if you were in a bunker, taking some practice swings, touching the sand each time, that would be a 2-stroke penalty. So let's just say you did it twice with no intervening event. That would be 1 single 2-stroke penalty. But let's say instead you're taking practice swings, touching the sand, and somebody in your group says, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. Now that's been an intervening event. If you were to do it again, you would get 2 2-stroke penalties. So as I said, mostly are things that so much is going to be going on that you're probably, when you turn in your scorecard, you're going to say, here's what happens, and we're not sure how to deal with it. And Pascalina or Sarah, whoever is taking scorecards, will say, oh, we can help you with that. But basically, intervening, you do something wrong, and then you do either the same thing again or even something else with no intervening event, you're going to get a single penalty. If one of the penalties is 1 stroke and the other is 2 strokes, you'll get the 2-stroke penalty. So, and then, as I said, the other intervening event is making a stroke. So you do something, play a shot, do it again. That's a whole new situation. On to the next one is about handicaps on scorecards and adding up scores. This is really a welcome change. As you know, when we play in WMGA events, we get scorecards with our course handicap or the handicap we're using on that day on the card. And we use the handicap that was established a week ahead of time. Then it gets converted to the course handicap with their slope and rating. And then often there's a percentage. And that really isn't something that we as players can really calculate ahead of time. So we trust that the handicap that is on our card is correct. Prior to this, we had to have it right. And if you made a mistake, it would be DQ. Now this is entirely on the committee to get right. But there is a clarification about players' responsibilities. If you arrived at an event and you know you're about a 9 handicap and you're handed your card and they have you as a 23, you better tell them. If you were to knowingly not tell, that's serious and you would be disqualified. But you know, there could be occasions when all you're thinking about is your gross score. Your marker has your card, you never look at it. And so you don't even notice that it's wrong. But once you notice a mistake, you are required to let the committee know. The next one is about repair and replacing clubs. There's been a lot of back and forth on this. When the rules came out in 2019, there was not much replacement of clubs allowed. It had to be very, very severely damaged or not the player's fault and so forth in order to replace a club. In no time, the PGA Tour wasn't happy with that. You know, as you know, they have all the equipment in the world and all the people in the world to bring them a new driver. So that got changed by a local rule so that the PGA Tour could allow replacing clubs. So now the rule has been changed to the opposite way, that they can be replaced, except that there's a local rule that says, no, they can't. So just so you'll know, the WMGA is using the local rule that says no replacement unless it's severe damage, such as a shaft broken in pieces. A dent shaft would not count. A dented club head would not count. The MGA is also using this local rule, as is the USGA. So this isn't just a few of us saying, oh, let's not replace clubs. This is going to be, I'm going to guess that it's only going to be PGA Tour and the other pro tours that are going to allow the replacement. Next one is substituting another ball. It used to be a 2-stroke penalty. It's been reduced to 1 stroke. I'll come back to the one about ball moved by natural forces, and I have a fun video to show. The next one, called other help, there's been a change. It puts what was allowed, or not allowed, I should say, on the putting green to everywhere on the course. So your caddy or a partner or anyone may point out a line of play, such as you have a blind shot to a green and somebody goes up ahead, stands on the top of the hill, shows you, aim here, and they have to get out of the way. So that hasn't changed. They can still do that, but they cannot put anything down to show the line of play. They can't set an object down. So if a caddy were to take a cap or a towel and say, I'm just going to leave that there for you, that is not allowed. And the minute it's set down, you can't avoid the penalty. So the previous rule was they could put something down, but had to move it before you hit the shot. Now they can't even put it down. So we're going to have to hope that when we have caddies that they know this new rule and don't start getting us in trouble. The next one is what happens about replaying or not replaying when you're on the putting green and your ball hits an insect, which is also a loose impediment, or if it deflects, say, around the hole and comes back and hits your foot, or horseshoes around the hole and hits your putter again, those strokes are not replayed. Sometimes you don't even see that it's hit a little ladybug. So it would be not very nice to make you replay that. There are many other situations on the green where you do replay. For example, if a dog, a big animal, not a ladybug, stopped or deflected your ball. But I could do a whole session on Rule 11. But just keep in mind, so it's really those 3 things: an insect, your own club that you just use to make the stroke, or you. And if it's a putt, I hope it's only your foot that it hit. Penalties in Stableford. We don't play much Stableford, but penalties used to, certain penalties such as being late to the tee or having too many clubs were point reductions that happened at the end of the round. Now they're applied exactly as in stroke play. So if you're late to the tee in stroke play, but you get there within 5 minutes, you get a 2-stroke penalty. So now in Stableford, it would be a 2-stroke penalty on the first hole. A whole new section before 2023, there were 24 rules. Now Rule 25 deals with players with disabilities. This year, the USGA conducted a championship. It was held at Pinehurst for players with disabilities. And so Rule 25 has all kinds of modifications for blind, for amputees, for just about any kind of disability. And those rules they're official part of the rules. and they are followed in any competition. So it doesn't have to be a competition that's only open to, say, blind people. If there was a blind player who wanted to play in any of our tournaments, those disabilities would apply to them. Back on the online relief procedure, I'm going to come back to, and then we have how to proceed when a stroke must be replayed. So a couple of places where a stroke won't count and it gets replayed. The most common is an overhead power line. If your ball hits an overhead power line, it has to be replayed. Now they've taken away the possible DQ for not replaying. So it's still helpful to know that you're supposed to replay, but if you don't, the stroke will count and you get 2-stroke penalty. So that's another kinder, gentle. So I'm going to move on now to one that's kind of fun.
Wendy, we've got a question on this.
Oh, great.
Is there a penalty when the ball hits your foot when putting?
When the ball hits your foot. Right. Well, that's exactly what I just covered. No, that's not a penalty. So when I said that you didn't have to, the stroke is not replayed, it's played as it lies. And no, there's not a penalty for that. Now, if it was intentional, whole different thing. Accidental deflection off your foot is not a penalty. As I said, Rule 11. Lots of fun. We should plan a swing series just for Rule 11. So let me just see. I'm going to do that. Oh, okay. Let's see now. Did I do that right? I've practiced all this technology here, but
looks good to me. We can see you.
Okay, so we're seeing me now, right? And now I'm going to screen share again. Share. Okay, some of you may have seen this when it happened or videos on YouTube.
Wendy, I got one more email or answer question that just trickled
Okay,
in.
sure.
So Rule 9.3, what is the new exception? It's worded oddly.
Was that something I had put up on my?
I have to go back and look.
Okay, let me put it back up there.
So you might go over that later.
Wait, oh, this is it, what I'm just doing now.
Okay.
Right, where I said the ball moved by natural forces. Yes, this is the exception that I'm getting to. Okay, so you may have seen this when it happened. It was at the Waste Management in 2019. And at the time, Ricky Fowler got more penalties than he deserved. And the rule has changed. And this is the exception. So I'm going to play this video and then explain when it applies. Let's see here.
Heavy rain going on out there right now as Ricky's over at 11.
Oh, except maybe in the rain. Look at this. This is a huge mistake. Very steep bank, and there's a hazard. Excuse me, a penalty area behind. Wow, that is a colossal error. Unbelievable.
You know, that ball hydroplaned a little bit off that wet grass, Gary. I don't think he legislated for that. No, I'm talking about the bounce.
Yep. Yeah, when it first skids on the green. Yeah. Let's take another look. Yeah, right there.
Yes, sir.
It did pop up. It just almost turned over.
Oh boy, how close he was to being
In the
okay.
bunker. Yeah.
Now just disaster.
Into the penalty area. And Raj, it appears that Fowler has dropped the ball twice and the ball's gone back into the penalty area.
That's correct, Gary. So now placing the ball where the ball struck the course on the second drop.
Roger, did did he not have an opportunity to go to the right? Or would it have been closer to the
It would have
hole?
been near the hole.
All right.
Also, just the way angle back here, so he didn't get that opportunity.
Well, he's in a tough spot here. And as you said, Gary, earlier, he didn't even consider replaying this shot.
I mean, you could really have issues.
I mean, with a good shot from this, it's an indication of how close the line of the grass is and how steep the bank is. Ricky's looking, that's crazy.
How that ball sat there for all that time. And so Brandon Grace is right back in it big time. And so are a lot of other people, depending on what ultimately happens here at 11.
Well, the challenge is going to be for Grace to be able to play from tied or out in front, even possibly when he's played catch up all week. This has to be Ricky's sixth shot, I would think.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate, Paul. It was 3 into the hazard, 4 out. Was going to be playing his 5th, but the ball rolled back into the hazard, or excuse me, the penalty area for another stroke. So yeah. Well,
Play the
now it really makes a difference that
So the new exception is that when Ricky's ball rolled into the penalty area after he had taken relief and dropped it twice, wouldn't stay in place, he had to place it. When it rolled back in, he had to take another penalty area penalty. Now the exception is if natural forces cause your ball to move into a different area of the course after you've dropped or placed, you just replace it. To be honest, other than this video, I've never heard of this happening. So the thing that you just have to remember, if a ball just is at rest, perched somewhere, and then it rolls into a bunker or it rolls into a penalty area, that's not a case of replacing it. You replace it if you've already dropped or placed. But it's just kind of a fun thing. So I thought I'd show that. Let's see. So I'm going to share screen. We're going to go back to a change in the close out of that one. Whoops. Okay, there we go. Okay. So the change in taking back on the line relief is almost reverting to pre-2019 rules. So those of you who have been playing for more than 4 years probably are very familiar with the way this rule has been changed. So back on the line relief is one of the options when taking relief from a penalty area or taking unplayable ball relief. So the way this has changed is that there is no longer a relief area. So you don't have a reference point and one club length on either side. Instead, you have to drop on the line. You can go back as far as you like. So in this first picture here, it's being done correctly. Players taking relief from this penalty area, drops on the line back through the flag stick, and you can see that was properly dropped on the line. From there, it can roll one club length in any direction, even nearer the hole. In this picture, the player properly dropped it on the line, but it rolled out of what became the relief area. So you can see this little club there showing the circle. So it went too far. In this case, the player is dropping in the wrong way. he does not get a chance to drop over here. His proper drop had to be here. So that has to be corrected. If it's not corrected, it would be playing from a wrong place. Are there any hands up or questions about this one? It's really pretty simple, but in 2019, we got introduced to this idea of you always had this one club length relief area from the reference point. Now your reference point is established once you've dropped and you get the club length from there. I see that Lynn Gear has her hand raised. Is she asking a question about this?
I don't see one written from her. We've got one about the last rule. Here, I'll read Suzanne. So if your ball in front of the green after placing rolls all the way down the hill but stays in the general area, you play it from all the way down the hill because it's in the general area.
Good question. Yes, because it didn't go into a new or a different area of the course. So imagine playing a course that has domed greens or false fronts, and your ball is at rest, and you're hoping it's not going to roll down from where it is. If it stayed in the general area, if it was in the general area and it stayed in the general area, you don't replace it. If it rolled from the general area to a bunker, you would replace it. But it has to go to a different part of the course.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions here, Wendy. In back of line relief, how do you accurately determine the actual line? Asking as an opponent who questions my opponent's line.
Okay, that's, in this nice picture with the dotted lines, it's like, oh, easy. But we also know that we rarely know exactly where it crossed the edge of the penalty area. So in this case, this player has determined that it crossed here, but maybe it crossed here. So you do your best to establish where it crossed the edge of the penalty area. And from there, you do your best to drop on that line. One thing that I know that I've discussed with the MGA, they are looking into getting some information from the USGA on how close does it really have to be to the line. You are expected to drop on the line, but is 2 inches too far away? And we hope to get some clarification on that.
We've got a good question here. Please define general area.
Oh, okay. So there are the defined areas of the course. And so the defined areas of the course are the teeing area, penalty areas, bunkers, putting greens. Did I say penalty areas? Yeah, so there are 5 areas and every place else is the general area. So it includes rough and fairway. So you have teeing area, penalty areas, bunkers, putting greens, everything else is the general area. There's a good diagram in the rule book that, let's see, I'll just pull that up. Here we go. Defined areas of the course. So you've got the teeing area, you got some penalty areas that don't necessarily have to have water. Here's one with water, one without. You have bunkers, you have the putting green, and everything else is the general area.
All right, the next question. Can you go back as far as you want as long as you are on the line?
Yes. Yes.
So you make the circle at the point as far back as long on the line.
Yes.
Okay.
I should have mentioned that. No limit to how far back you can go. So when taking back on the line relief, you'll often see players, I know I certainly do it, and I'm not even that good, but I like to pick a distance that I like. So this player, if his ball had gone in the penalty area right there, he could drop here. But maybe he likes being 75 yards away. So yes, you can go back as far as you like.
In this current diagram, it shows an orange circle. Do we get one club length or only allowed to drop on the line?
Okay, you drop. Obviously, the orange circle is in our imaginations, as is the reference point. But, okay, so you're going to drop anywhere on this line. Once the ball hits the ground, that's when that one club length circle comes into play. Now, can you always be sure that your ball is within that circle? I mean, this picture here, it's barely out. So, you know, unless you absolutely see where it hit, get your club out to measure to see whether it rolled too far, you can't always be sure. But when you're dropping from knee height, unless you're on a hill, it's not going to roll very far. So that's how the circle gets established once you've dropped.
And there's a question about, is there any sort of time limit with this?
Time limit.
I'm not sure if that was this question though, or the previous one.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what, if that person asking about the time limit wants to type in a bit more, maybe we could come back to it, because I don't quite see what sort of time limit we'd have here.
And we've got another question here. The new rule allows you to go closer to the hole as opposed to the old rule when it was only side and backwards, question mark?
The old rule as of 2019, you got to go sideways here, okay? So this in 2019, this picture would have been okay, okay? In 2019, it couldn't roll forward. Now it can. So yes, that person asking that question is correct.
And why is the last diagram a X, no go?
Because the player dropped in the wrong place. He didn't drop on the line. He had to drop anywhere on that line. Now we're oh
All
wait.
right, we still have a few going on here.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So the question about the time limit was for the Ricky Fowler example.
Oh, okay. So the person probably means, is there a time limit to how long the ball was at rest before it rolled? I assume that's what they mean.
Yeah, I would think so.
I'm going to assume that's it, and no, there wouldn't be. So Ricky had to drop, it rolled into the penalty area, he had to drop again, it rolled in, and then he placed it. No, when you place a ball after dropping and it won't stay at rest, as long as it stays at rest for a few seconds, it's considered at rest. So if he placed it and it immediately started to move, he'd have to place it again. And you just keep placing until you can get it to be at rest. So no, there wouldn't be any particular time limit on how long it had been there.
Okay, Wendy, please mention other options for taking relief other than on the line relief.
Oh, okay. So for both unplayable ball and penalty area, you have the option of stroke and distance. Means just go back to where you hit the previous shot, or not for a yellow penalty area, but for a red penalty area, you have lateral relief, which is 2 club lengths from where it crossed the, for a unplayable, it's 2 club lengths from the ball in any direction other than closer to the hole. And for a penalty area, it's 2 club lengths from the edge of the penalty area, no closer to the hole. So you have, for unplayable ball, you get 3 options. For yellow penalty area, you have 2 options, which is stroke and distance and back on the line. And red penalty area, you have the 3 options, stroke and distance, back on the line, and lateral.
Got 2 more here. The other help rule, if a towel is laid down and removed, is that a 1-stroke penalty?
So the, no, that would be a 2-stroke penalty.
Okay, and a general comment on a practice swing, and you accidentally advance the ball. When is it replayed, or is it played from a new spot?
That's one of the questions that can we get to that one when I get to it, or
Sure.
we
We'll
can
hold
do
on
it
that one.
now? Okay, just a second. That was one of the submitted questions. Let me look. I think the person who's just asked that has asked it exactly the way the submitted question was. Okay, here it is. I accidentally hit my ball in my practice swing. Do I get 1 penalty stroke for moving my ball, and do I need to put it back? What happens if when I accidentally hit it and it went far away? Do I have to go get that ball, or can I substitute? So I'll go right ahead and ask that one, and I'll cross this one out, or we'll go do it later. A practice swing is not a stroke, so the stroke does not count. But what you have done is accidentally moved your ball, and there's a 1-stroke penalty for that, and it needs to be replaced. In this case, unless the ball was really hit in the practice swing along a far way away, you just get that ball and place it back. If you're not exactly sure where it is, you estimate and put it back. In the case that your practice swing was great and you hit the ball a long way, you still have to replace it, but you can use a different ball to save time. Okay, so now I'm going to go on to the other questions that have been submitted. And the first one is about leaves. So the question is, sometimes in the fall, it's very hard to find the ball under the leaves. Do I have free relief? If so, how to proceed? Do we have to drop the ball where it went in, or do we have to play the lost ball rule? And that's a great question, because it happens to all of us. So I have a few pictures of some leaves, of course. Share. Leaves. Here we go. So here I see the ball right there, but we know when you're searching on the course for a ball near some leaves, it can be impossible to find. The answer to this question is yes, no, and maybe. It depends on the situation. In general, in this picture here, where it's just a bunch of leaves that have fallen, no, you would have to play a lost ball if you couldn't find it. On the other hand, there's the yes. If leaves have been piled for removal by the grounds crew, and we see this, they get out their equipment and make piles along the edge of the fairways from the fallen leaves, and then they come back either that day or another day to pick them up. This counts as ground under repair or abnormal ground conditions. So you would get free relief from that. So let's just say that your direction of play is that way. This isn't a golf course, by the way. This is just outside my front door. You would use the point where your ball last crossed the edge of this pile as your reference point, and you would drop a ball within 1 club length, left, right, you'd have a semicircle there to drop with free relief. And then we have the maybe. The maybe is there might be a local rule. And I will read this to you. It's right here. I'm sorry, it's a little small. But But at certain times of the year, certain loose impediments such as seeds or acorns or leaves might make it difficult to find your ball. A committee can choose to treat these piles or spots of loose things in the general area or in a bunker as ground under repair and give free relief. It may not be used for penalty areas. And it's limited to the holes where these problems may come up. So it has to be specific. So if a committee writes a local rule, they can say, you know what, when you're playing with a fifth hole, we know there's a problem. So there's going to be free relief, treated as ground under repair.
So Wendy, is it considered ground under repair even if it's not marked ground under repair? Like
Yes.
this photo, no marking.
Right.
We
So
can determine this ourselves, question mark?
yes. So in the case of this pile, it definitely would not be marked, and you figure out where the edge of it is. And then in the case of the local rule, you will be dropping, again, you'll be estimating about where your ball would be. Okay, so our next question. See, I do stop share. Okay, there we are. Oh, this was a great one. This is about marking your ball. And this person writes in, I've seen all different ways that people mark their ball once they reach the green. I've seen the ball marker set down on the right beside the ball. I've seen the ball marker set down, she said, behind the ball. And then when it's placed back, it's an inch or more closer to the hole. And then I've seen the marker picked up after the ball is placed, and then the person rotates the ball to align it. Can you set the record straight? I'd be happy to. So let me get out some of my pictures. Share. So I'm going to show you first balls that are marked correctly. So in this picture here, this is WMGA 75th anniversary of team match ball marker, by the way. This is the usual way to mark a ball. You put it directly behind the ball. Here we have somebody who's marked it to the side. Believe it or not, that's allowed. And here's somebody has marked it in front of it. Also allowed. The problem arises, of course, if you don't replace the ball where it's supposed to be. I have absolutely no idea why anybody would mark their ball like this. I have a few thoughts on why somebody might mark their ball this way. If my ball was here and a player was going to come and mark their ball, they might just think, well, rather than be asked to move their marker to the side, if they just mark the ball to the side right away, it might not be in my way. Saves a step. That's one theory. Another thing I've seen is somebody walks to their ball to mark it, and they're coming from this direction. They just put it down there. I have a suggestion, though, when you see somebody doing either, which one? This one? First of all, if I saw somebody doing that, I'd say, why are you doing that? Because chances are when this person replaces it, they're going to put it here, closer to the hole. So I would just ask why they're doing it. That kind of alerts them that they better be careful. Might be the same thing here, saying, gee, why did you mark it to the side? Or when they go to put it back, just make sure they get it in the right spot. But all of those are allowed. I'll show you some incorrect marking now. Okay, both of these balls have been marked incorrectly, even though the markers are behind the ball. They're not directly behind the ball. and that is not permitted. As soon as either of these balls is lifted, having been marked that way, there's a penalty. 1 stroke, and you can't fix it. Pick up that marker that you've marked in the wrong. It's as though you hadn't marked the ball at all. And then we have replacing it incorrectly, because I think that was the other question. So although this looks just like one of the other pictures where the player marked it incorrectly, let's assume that this was correctly marked. The ball was here, but when the player went to replace it, they put it there. That is playing from a wrong place, and it would be a 2-stroke penalty. Or in match play, loss of hole for playing from a wrong place. Now, this one's going to surprise you. Well, I don't know what will surprise you, but it seems a little weird, but it's true. So let's just say you replace your ball there, pick up your marker, and then it's pointed out that you would replace your ball closer to the hole. You can fix that mistake without even putting the marker back down. Just move it back and get it in the right place. Better not to do that in the first place, but that's the right way that rule works.
Couple questions about this rule. Must the player who marked the ball replace the ball?
If somebody other than the player marked the ball, that person can replace it. So the player can always replace it, or if somebody other than the player marked it. So a caddy can mark your ball on the green, only on the green. So if a caddy went ahead and marked your ball, the caddy could replace it for you, or you could replace it. Partners can replace in partner golf too, but you couldn't have anyone else do it.
Can you use your putter or foot to align your ball which hasn't been marked?
Yes, you can. Good question.
Is there a stroke penalty if the player fixes the ball? I think that's in relation to who marked it. So the
Fixes.
caddy, yeah, she says, is there a stroke penalty if the player fixes the ball? But it's the same person that asked about anyone else marking their ball.
I'm not quite sure what the question is.
So the caddy marks the ball, the player or the caddy
Can replace it.
can replace it.
Yes. So another question that was asked was about players who mark the ball. Okay, they've replaced their ball in front of the marker. They pick up the marker and then they rotate the ball to align it. You know how people have lines on their ball, and they fiddle with it a bit. You can only do that with your ball marker behind it. So you're penalized for, and the reason for that, it's you've touched your ball. So somebody might say, well, gee, I didn't move it, it's still in the same place. You cannot purposely touch your ball in that case when it's not marked. So you can fiddle with the ball all you want. Do it quickly, please. Before putting, but the ball marker has to be in place.
So along this same issue of marking the ball, some players just kind of toss their marker. What do you say to that player?
Yeah. So if they're tossing their marker, so if the ball is in place and they just kind of toss their marker down, it really just has to be placed in the right place, which is directly in back of or to the side or even in front of the ball. So if this was a case of marking the ball, this is our replacing picture, but it doesn't matter. If this is where the ball is and a player casually kind of tossed a marker down and it ended up here, it's not marking the ball. It's not in the right place. If they casually tossed it and got it in the right place, they're okay.
If you replace the ball and then remove the marker and the ball slightly moves while you're trying to remove the marker, is that counted as a stroke?
No, no. And you would just move it back where it belonged.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to move on to embedded balls. Oops, wait, screen share. Share. Oops, meant to take that one down. Embedded ball. So let's see, what was the question? Maybe there wasn't really a question. I think somebody just said, tell me about embedded balls. So I'll tell you about embedded balls. Unless a local rule says otherwise, free relief is available for embedded balls anywhere in the general area, which includes both fairway and rough. You don't need to have a special rule about in a teeing ground, because you're allowed to do all sorts of things on the teeing ground. No relief in a bunker. And of course, on the green, you get to mark your ball, fix any ball marks, so it's not an issue there. You are allowed to lift your ball, mark it first, please, to see if it's embedded, because sometimes you can't tell. If it's in the fairway on a wet day, it's usually very, very obvious that it's embedded. But it has to be in its own pitch mark, you know, not just some random hole that was out there. And it has to be below the level of the ground. So this ball is embedded because there's the dirt. This ball is obviously embedded because it actually sort of, it's pretty similar to that. This one is just down in the grass and it's not embedded. So if it's embedded, your reference point is directly behind the ball and you get your club length to drop left, right, or back. You're going to get that semicircle and you can drop anywhere in that semicircle. I believe the same person who submitted this question wanted to know about embedded in a bunker. Oops. Yep, fried egg. No relief. Hit it or take an unplayable. On the other hand, got some other bunkers here. All different types. Sorry, I don't have any balls actually embedded in them, but if a ball is embedded other than in the sand, it's actually in the general area. So although this is all rough and tumble, you can see that the sand, and therefore the bunker, is there. If a ball was embedded in the dirt here, that is considered part of the general area and you would get relief. And your reference point for relief would be the nearest point. If there isn't relief right behind there, the nearest point in the general area. I'll give you an example, a better example, where I have my cursor right there. The spot directly behind the ball would be in the bunker. So that's not going to be the reference point. It's going to have to be a place not near the hole that's in the general area. And then you get your club length. And there are going to be times, I mean, you might have to drop there. There's no guarantee that it's going to be nice, but you would get relief. This is a beautiful bunker, and all of that dirt there is considered part of the general area. So you would get relief if it was embedded there. And then if you've been to Scotland 13 times, the way I have, you've been in lots of these, but I don't think I've ever, the stacked turf is hard as a rock. I mean, it would be really hard to get a ball embedded in there, but that's considered general area. So for example, if your ball did happen to embed right there, since this is a vertical face, the spot directly behind it would be in the bunker. So you would have to find the spot that's in the general area that's as close as can be to take your relief. There.
Wendy, if embedded in rough, relief must stay in rough.
No, if your ball is embedded, that's a great question, because now we're talking about general area. So the rough and the fairway are both general area. And so if your ball is embedded in the rough and you're one club length from your reference point could get you to the fairway, that's good. You can do that. That's a very good question. A lot of people think that you can't, and that would apply to other situations as well. If you're taking relief from a drain or some sort of obstruction that's in the rough, if your nearest point of relief can get you to with your club length, can get you to the fairway, that's fine. But I should say it works the other way too. If you were in temporary water in the fairway, it's possible that your nearest point of relief could be in the rough. So rough and fairway are both general area, and sometimes it works to your advantage and sometimes it doesn't.
Can you clean an embedded ball?
Oh, yes, yes, but you cannot clean it. Well, it wouldn't. If you were to mark your ball to see if it's embedded and you lift it and it's not embedded, you couldn't clean it. You'd have to replace it. But if it is embedded, yes, you get to clean it and take relief. Let's see. Oh, okay. So this was, before we move on to fun with cart paths. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, I had to make myself big again. This question was asked. Is there an easy way to differentiate out of bounds versus lost ball versus unplayable versus hazard? And I thought, well, okay. Well, I can tell you this. They all involve a one-stroke penalty. The procedure for out of bounds and lost balls are identical because sometimes you don't know if it's out of bounds or just lost. So the procedure is always stroke and distance. If it was played from the tee, you go back to the tee. If a ball is in a penalty area, you may either play it or take relief, one-stroke penalty. And for unplayable, you can take an unplayable at your discretion for any reason. You're the sole judge, and you can take unplayable anywhere except in a penalty area. You can't do it in a penalty area because you already have a way of getting out of the penalty area. You use the penalty area rule. And they're all one-stroke penalty. Let's see, I was going to go right on to cart paths, but this afternoon we got a flash with another question. Sorry, I don't have a video or a picture to show because it came in late. It was asked about taking relief for a ball that's up in a tree or in a bush. I have a feeling, based on the way this question was asked, that this happened recently. Patrick Reed on the tour had a ball up in a tree. He identified it with binoculars. The official said it was okay. You know, he claimed, yes, that's my ball, that he could see his identifying mark. So the question, I guess, is that's being asked here is how do you take relief if your ball is up in a tree? So we're going to assume that you can't possibly play it, and therefore your choice is to take an unplayable. So in order to take either the lateral option or the back of on the line option for unplayable, you have to be able to identify it. If you can't identify it because it's too far up in the tree and you can't see your marker, you're going to have to play lost ball and go back to wherever you were. If you can identify it, you could play stroke and distance. You don't have to, but you would use the point directly below where the ball is up in the tree as your reference point. So you could, you know, you look up in the tree, okay, there's the spot on the ground, and you either take back on the line relief, which we've gone through where you drop and can roll a club length, or you can take lateral 2 club lengths in any direction, no nearer the hole. But you are allowed to use binoculars, rangefinder sometimes might help to identify it, but you do have to identify the ball. You can't just say, well, there's a ball up in a tree, it's probably mine. You're going to have to really see that it's yours. So I had a lot of questions about cart paths. Some were general, some had some specific questions. So I hope that the next ones will be helpful. So share cart path relief number 1. Here we go. Okay. So this is for a right-handed player. I will get on to left-handed players because that was a question that was asked. So we're going to say this is the cart path. This is the direction of play. And this is where the ball is on the cart path. What you need to do is find your nearest point of complete relief. And I was asked, well, what is complete relief? And that's relief from the lie of the ball, your stance, and the area of your intended swing. So to take relief from this spot, you cannot stand on the cart path. That's why I put those shoes off the path. And that's about where the ball would be if you were holding a club. So that's one possible nearest point of relief. The other, for a right-handed player, would be right there. So then what you do is you say, well, which is closer? This is closer. That's not as far as that distance. Therefore, this is your nearest point of relief. And what we always say, it's the nearest point of relief, not the nicest point of relief. So this would be your nearest point of relief, and you would get a club length and drop anywhere in there. Another question I was asked was, do you have to take relief? No. You might choose, if you see these rocks and this tall junk, you might say, I'm just going to hit it off the cart path. You might also take an unplayable, which might get you to a better spot. So for an unplayable, you could stand on the cart path. Unplayable, if you took lateral relief, you could go 2 club lengths from the ball. So 1 club length would be about here, and the other club length would be about there. So that's going to cost you a penalty stroke, of course, but it might be better than being in here. So again, you've got, in this case, you're not going to get anything over here And of course, not here because it's closer to the hole. So sometimes you just get an arc like that. Other times you get a full semicircle, depending on the situation. Now, I'd like a round of applause, please, from everybody. Yesterday afternoon, I found a picture of a golf club and I had to rotate it. And then I found an arc and I had to change the size of it. And it took a good part of my day. And the next picture I'm going to show you will not have any clubs because it took too long. But the rule book has some pictures that show the clubs, but I'm kind of a novice at that.
So Wendy, are you allowed to stand on the path, but the ball's on the grass?
No, because that would not be complete relief. So you have to take complete relief, and that means for your stance. Let's see, I'm gonna go, okay, the next one is a little bit, okay. So this picture is pretty much what we just saw. The nearest point for a right-handed player is off to the left for a ball that's in the middle. When balls are right in the middle of the cart path, often there's this thought of, oh, I can go to either side. No, you really have to figure it out which side it's going to be on. Here we have the same exact situation, but a left-handed player. Yes, I rotated these shoes to make them left-handed. Round of applause, please. So in this case, the ball's in the same spot, but the left-handed player gets to bring their ball here to a nice spot. Because for the left-handed player, that would be the nearest point of relief, and that's farther away from the ball than this. So completely different. Then down here, we have where the ball is closer to one side of the cart path than another. So even though you see it close to this side of the cart path, you think, oh, I go on this side. Well, that's true for the right-handed player. Because they went over that way, you can see that's much, much farther away. Now for the left-handed player, even though the ball is closer to this side of the cart path, I know it looks close, but trust me, I measured this out. This is closer. And so this is a case where you really would get out a club or something to measure, pace it off with your feet to see, well, which is the closer. I'd like to show you one more thing that can be a factor. I'm going to move this cart path. Ooh. Pascalina, clap, impressed? Okay, so let's just say that it's a much wider cart path. This can start changing things. So let's see, so this is the ball. We have a left-handed player here. Now this becomes, I'm going to have to move these feet. This is closer. So now the left-handed player has to drop over here. For the right-handed player, it would still be here. So the size of the cart path can make a difference.
Couple questions here. Aren't the rocks interfering with the intended swing? Don't we get relief from that?
That's a different condition. Great question. No, they're just bad luck. So when you need to take the complete relief, it's from that particular condition that you're taking relief from. you would never get relief from the rocks anyway. So if your ball was never on the cart path, but just came to rest right here, you'd be out of luck. You're just in a bad spot. But you have to take your relief if you're going to take it anywhere it is. A different case would be, for example, though, if this were temporary water over here. Okay. Oh, I'd love to be able to just, I should have made a little pond, little puddle. Let's, for the sake of argument, let's say there's temporary water right here. That doesn't change the fact that this is still your nearest point of complete relief from the cart path. Temporary water would be a different situation. So you might have to drop in the temporary water, but now you deal with that. And who knows, that might get you over here.
All right, can you choose not to take relief and play the balls it lies, even if your feet are on the path?
Yes, yeah, you can do that. One time I was officiating at a US Open qualifier, and I was a player's ball from the tee came down practically behind a tree, and I thought his feet were going to be on the cart path, and I was getting everything all ready. You know, I wanted to be ready for him. Like, okay, this is going to be your nearest point of relief, and so on. And don't you know, he was a lefty, so I had that all wrong. So I had to fix that. And he took one look and he said, "I'm hitting it." And he hit a wonderful shot around the tree, over the pond, onto the green. But he chose, I think he had a better angle to the green, actually playing from the cart path. Now, having asked that question about choosing not to take relief, sometimes that's the best option. It's always a good idea, always, to check it out. Where is your relief going to be? Do that before you pick up your ball. Always. If you were to pick up your ball, let's just use this easy one here. You say, "Oh, I'm on a cart path," and you pick up your ball. And then it's pointed out to you, or you realize it yourself, that your nearest point of relief is over here, and you don't like that one bit. Well, you've got a problem. You can replace the ball, but it's going to be a penalty stroke. So although you were allowed to pick up your ball, you were only allowed to pick it up in order to take relief from the obstruction. Now that you don't want that relief, that negates your right to have picked it up. So you may put it back with one penalty stroke. You may put it back with one penalty stroke and then take an unplayable for an additional penalty stroke. Or you could drop it, no penalty for that, because you are following the rule for the obstruction, and then take an unplayable from that new spot. But it can be pretty bad if you just pick up your ball without knowing what you want to do. I have to say, in all of my officiating, I don't think I've ever come across a player who has picked up his or her ball when they're looking for help from me. You know, so if they're in a situation, they leave their ball down and they say, "What can I do?" And they ask whether or not they get relief. So I haven't been in that situation where I've had to tell them that they made a mistake.
Wendy, we've got a lot of questions in the chat here.
Okay, great.
So I'm just going to start going through them. So on various topics.
Okay.
Sometimes when a caddy or cart driver goes forward to try and find a ball in deep rough, they place a cap or towel to mark the location. Is that now a penalty and the caddy or cart needs to stay there to identify where the ball is? This is not an aid for lineup, but for location.
No, that's just fine. As a matter of fact, when I officiate, I have to remember, sometimes I never do it, to take an extra hat because I'm often in the area. I'm there searching for a ball before the player gets there. I find it. I usually take my hat off and I put it down, and then I have to do another search for the other player's ball, and I don't have another hat. So that's very usual that they put something down. It has nothing to do with alignment. It's just to, no, that's fine.
We need to get you some of our little blue flags.
Yes, those would be great.
If you take a practice swing while putting and accidentally hit the ball, is it a one-stroke penalty, or can you replace and get no penalty?
You must replace and no penalty. The rules on the green have become very liberal. You can accidentally move your ball in just about any possible way, and you replace it without penalty. But you do have to replace it. If you didn't replace it, it would be a wrong place, and that would be a 2-stroke penalty in stroke play or loss of hole in match play.
This next person's asking about the practice swing when it's on the teeing ground or teeing area.
Okay, that's a good one. On the tee, if you take a practice swing and you accidentally hit the ball, the ball is not in play. So it's as though it never happened. No penalty at all. Pick it up, move your tee to a different place. You can do whatever you want. It's as though it's just non-event.
Okay, some leaves questions. Do you have to find the ball in the pile of leaves?
No, you could search for it. Those leaves are loose impediments, but as long as you're virtually certain that it's in there, chances are you saw it go in. You don't have to find it. That's the same it would be the same as though you knew your ball was in temporary water, but you couldn't find it. Same thing.
What if a ball falls into an animal hole?
Okay, there is free relief from an animal hole. Again, you have to be virtually certain that it's in there. So if you didn't see it go in the hole, but you come across an animal hole and say, I bet my ball's down there, that's not good enough. But if you saw it go in, you get relief. These are great.
Yeah, I've got a good one, several over marking in the putting green. So let me go through these. Can you go over fixing things on the green? Can anything be fixed, or are there things you can't fix, like tiny machine marks? And how can you tell the difference?
Okay, that's a good one. You can fix lots of things. You can fix animal damage, like a deer run onto the green and their hoof prints make damage. You can fix that. You can fix ball marks. You can fix spike marks. You cannot fix aeration holes. Very often you get relief from aeration holes if the greens have been aerated and you get to move the ball to the side, but you can't fix those. You can't fix your everyday wear and tear type, or as you said, it's hard to tell sometimes if something is something that the machines have done, but there's not much you can't fix on the greens.
Okay, what are the penalties for all of the marking errors on the green?
Okay, so if you were to mark your ball and then replace it in the wrong place, I think I showed a picture where the player had put the ball closer to the hole. That would be playing from a wrong place. Wrong place penalties are 2 strokes. When I showed the picture of having where the player marked the ball too far behind it, so that is not marked properly. And so it's almost as though it hadn't been marked. So then when you lift your ball, you've lifted the ball without marking it. And therefore that's a 1-stroke penalty. Just as any time you purposely or even accidentally, if it's not on the green, move your ball. So you've moved your ball without authority. So you put it back with a 1-stroke penalty.
Clarification, you or the caddy mark the ball and player puts it back 1 inch ahead of marker and opponent says it was marked incorrectly. Can the player move ball back with no penalty?
Okay, would you read that one once
Yeah,
more?
let me read it again. Clarification, you or caddy mark ball and player puts it back 1 inch ahead of marker and opponent says marked incorrectly. Can player move back ball with no penalty?
Okay, so if the ball had been marked properly, but replaced incorrectly, and it's pointed out before they've putted, yes, they just move it back with no penalty.
Okay. This one's a little long. Once I drove a ball on a par 3 into the underside lip of a bunker, like your photo on the left. There was no marking of where the ball was buried and could not find the ball after a few minutes. What's the ruling? I dropped the ball in the bunker, but couldn't identify exactly where the ball was buried. Should I have just re-teed for my 3rd shot?
Okay. Player never found the ball, is that correct?
Could not find the ball.
It's a lost ball, you re-tee.
Re-tee.
It doesn't matter that it's embedded. You even if it's very, very wet conditions, and you hit a ball into the fairway and you can't find it, and you just say, I know it's embedded somewhere here, you have to find it. That's not a case of any sort of virtual certainty where it might be. So in that case, re-teeing is the only option.
Can you please describe how to determine if you have standing water in the general area?
Yes. Temporary water is, by definition, it's water that can be seen, that your ball is in the water. You actually see the water, or it can be seen when you've taken your stance. What you sometimes see people do is they take one foot and they press right behind the ball or near the ball and they say, see, I can see the water. That doesn't count. It has to be either visible, that you see water around your ball, or you see water around your shoes when you're taking a stance. I once had a player, I was officiating, and his lie was fine. There was some sort of wet stuff fairly near his ball, but not where he was. He called me over. He said, temporary water. In those days, we called it casual water. It was a while ago. And I said, well, let me, the ball obviously was not in temporary water. But I said, well, let me see you take your stance. And he just would not take a stance. He kept pressing down. I said, no, a stance, both feet. How are you going to do the thing? He wouldn't do it. He wouldn't do it. I said, look, and I got up and I took my stance, or what would have been my stance. I said, see, no temporary water. And he said, I wish. He says, well, you must weigh 90 pounds. I weigh quite a bit more than 90, but he said, well, then take your stance and we'll see if, because he was a big guy and there was no temporary water. So something has to be seen, and it has to be for your stance, not pressing down.
Can you please review preferred lies, lift, clean, in place?
Okay, well, that would be a local rule, and Pascalina, hi, she writes up the local rules on our sheets, and I believe we've decided for WMGA events that it's always going to be 1 club length. Sometimes it's a scorecard length, it can be 6 inches. It's important if preferred lies are being used that you check the local rules to see what it is. It is almost always limited, but not always, limited to fairway height or less. So closely mown areas. And you do not need to mark your ball. You pick it up, you may clean it and place it within 1 club length, no closer to the hole. Now, if you were going to try to take the full club length, might not be a bad idea to mark your ball and measure it. But anytime you're going to be placing a ball other than, you're not replacing it, you're placing it somewhere else, there's no need to mark it. And occasionally, lift, clean, and place is allowed in the rough as well, but that's pretty unusual.
And in those cases, can you go from the rough to the fairway?
Yes. Again, I remember it was a WMGA event, and we were told that we were getting lift, clean, and place in the general area. And I remember asking on the tee, I said, well, my club length gets me to the fairway. Can I do it? And they said, yep.
Okay, keep going. My partner drives/walks over my ball. It moves or embeds. Can I get relief without a penalty? How does this differ if my opponent is the culprit?
Okay. So your partner, anything your partner does, it's, affecting you as well. So your partner has moved your ball, even if it moves just down by embedded, that is moved. So that would be a 1-stroke penalty, and you need to replace it. In the event that your partner really drove over the ball and just pressed it down, you would not replace it there. You would put it in the nearest, most similar lie. So it might be an inch or 2 away from where it was, but there would be the 1-stroke penalty. Opponent, if it was not during a search, if it was accidental, your opponent would be penalized and you would replace the ball.
Okay, are worm castings in the general area allowed to be cleaned up if near the ball?
Those worm casts are loose impediments, yes.
Can a player ask an opponent to remark the ball?
Remark.
No, I'm not sure what that's a reference to.
I don't know if that means, I don't know. I mean, you can ask your opponent to move their marker. That happens a lot when the marker is in the way of your putt, and you ask them to move it 1 putter head or more, left or right. But I don't know what they mean by remark.
Yeah, and there's a few yay Wendy's for in reference to some of your graphics.
You like that,
yeah.
that golf club?
Yes.
If I do another one, I'm gonna have golf clubs everywhere.
Yep. And then there's a few questions here, and I apologize. I'm not sure what they're in reference to. So if you have another question to add, please submit it. We'll give it another minute. I have one coming in here about bunkers. I once called someone on dragging the rake through bunker prior to hitting her shot out of bunker, but I think I was wrong. She did not appear to be testing bunker, just being efficient, re saving time to avoid schlepping back to get the rake. Is there a penalty to dragging rake in bunker prior to taking stroke in bunker?
No, there isn't, unless it was done, only if it was done for the purpose of testing the bunker. There's actually a video on the USGA website. By the way, the USGA site has lots of 1-minute videos on lots of little rules. So it's kind of fun. It doesn't take any time. You just, when you have a spare minute, just click on something. And there is a picture or a video of a woman going into a bunker with her club in one hand, and she's just kind of dragging it. I mean, just total carelessness, but there's no penalty because she was not doing it for the purpose of testing the sand, and it wasn't near her ball.
Right. Okay,
And
that's
cleaning up, like for example, you talk about dragging. If you're in a large bunker and the nearest rake, as you pick up the rake and you're going to walk to your ball, it makes sense to drag and rake behind you sometimes so that you don't have to then walk all the way back and, you know, do all that raking. It can speed things up.
All right, that was our last question that I had.
Well, I do have a few other good ones, but we're kind of,
We have a decent number of participants still on if you want to go through. a
okay. I
couple
mean,
of
there
those.
were some that I thought were kind of fun, and I'm calling this the lightning round. You know, remember the old game show, The Password? They had the lightning round. So I had a few submitted, and I'll just go, they're just kind of yes or no. Do I have to ask or tell my opponent if I'm taking relief from ground under repair or a sprinkler head or a drain? So if they're far away from me, do I have to tell them what I'm doing? So of course, this was said opponent, but it doesn't matter if it's opponent in match play or somebody in stroke play. No, you don't have to tell them because you're not taking a penalty. It's the right thing to do to mention it as soon as you can. You just say, by the way, I was on a sprinkler head over there. You do need to tell your opponent as soon as possible about a penalty that if you took a penalty drop. So if you took an unplayable and your opponent was over in the woods, you really have to tell them as soon as you're close together saying, by the way, I took an unplayable over there. That's important. Matter of fact, it's so important that if you don't tell them, it's loss of hole. Oh yes, I liked this one. I know I get free relief in a yardage from a yardage marker or a sprinkler head or a drain if I'm standing on it, or if it will interfere with my actual swing, but do I get relief if it's distracting me? No. End of that story. Oh, and this is, I told you I could do a whole evening on rule 11 with balls bouncing around and hitting things. The rule about playing two balls in stroke play, if you're unsure of what to do, that's something if we do another one of these years, I will make a point of spending some time on that, because it really, we're out there with one rules official on the whole course, you know, so you have to do what you can, and when you don't know what to do, you don't want to get it wrong, so you're allowed to play a second ball. There is a definite procedure to it. But this is the question. In stroke play, if the player is in doubt about how to proceed and we can't get a ruling, she can hit two balls to finish out the hole. Who decides which ball is the scoring ball? Is it the committee or the player, and when is it decided? So the player must decide and announce to her marker or another player which ball she wants to count. And you have to make that announcement before you play a stroke with either ball. Now, sometimes it's pretty obvious which one you would want to count. I mean, let's just say your ball is in a tire track and you think that you might be allowed relief from it. Well, obviously, if you were to get relief, you'd take it. I mean, why are you playing two balls? You obviously don't want to hit out of the tire track, but you must announce which one you want to count. If you don't do that, it will be the first ball that you play, and you can play in either order. So in case of you're in a rut, you play it as it lies and you take relief. But whichever, if you didn't make an announcement, it would be the one that you played first. And what the committee will do, and you must report to the committee, what the committee will do is probably go out to the course where you were, take a look, and decide whether or not you were entitled to relief. And based on which one you wanted to count, figure out the score. And it's, you know, it's possible you'd have a better score with the other one that you didn't want, but that's the way it works. But at least you won't have played from a wrong place. You know, if you were just take relief on your own, you'd be in some trouble. I think there's a few more, but that's about it. Oh, wait, I liked this one. Wait, I did get some good ones. We are all on the green. I don't know who we all are, but all of us. If a player refuses to mark their ball on the green, what recourse do I have? So, and if my ball hits their ball, will there be a penalty? So in stroke play, if you ask a player in your group to please mark their ball, they have the option of playing first. So if they say, no, I don't want to mark it, I really don't know why people would do this, but you never know. You would say to them, well, you can play first. So if the player said, well, I don't want to play first, you could go ahead and mark their ball. It's a movable obstruction. So just go ahead and mark it. If you didn't do that, if you just allowed it to be there and the player wouldn't mark it, you would get the 2-stroke penalty if your ball hit it. So just go ahead and say, hey, I'm getting this movable obstruction out of there. That's about it, I think.
Yeah, no questions, just many thank yous. Wendy, you're great. Thank you for your hard work. This has been great. Thanks for your time, your expertise, and your awesome graphics. Thank you, Wendy. Appreciate your time and knowledge. Yay, Wendy. Thanks, Wendy. Yay, Wendy. And we're getting a lot of nice comments here.
Oh, that's great to hear. I appreciate that. This is, I'm just a rules geek. It's my passion. I have fun with it. And so I'm glad to do it.
Yeah,
Your passion and your enthusiasm on the rules, I'm sure, has rubbed off on all of us here. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us, Wendy. We really appreciate your time and efforts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I just want to add, we are recording this session. It'll be on our website and on our YouTube channel, so you can watch it again or send it to your friends. So thank you, Wendy, for answering our questions and clearing up some common confusion surrounding the rules of golf. Your rules webinars are our most well-attended swing series sessions. And so we thank you for your time and effort in preparing this webinar. And it's not only preparing for the webinar that we have to thank you for, but all the volunteering that you do for the WMGA.
Thank you.
We at the WMGA are very excited for team matches and our tournament season starting soon. So thank you for joining us, for supporting the WMGA, and we hope to see you soon. So have a good evening.